Hey guys, welcome to Bassin and Beyond.
And we're your hosts, Josh and Luke.
Today's segment is the first of a three-part segment based on rod and reel choice. Today we'll focus on spinnerbait rod, crankbait rod, and flip and pitch rod.
We're first going to tell you about the spinnerbait rod.
The spinnerbait rod is a 6'6" medium heavy action, generally fast tip rod. The reason you want this rod is because you want accuracy with your 6'6" rod. The shorter the rod, the more accurate you're going to be. The longer the rod, the more distance you're going to be able to put on your casts. And with spinnerbaits, you're going to want a lot of accuracy. The 6'6" gives you enough backbone to get your lure out there, but it's really accuracy with spinnerbaits because you want to be able to drop them in those weeded areas that you're bringing your bait through to get those bass out of.
And then, for your reel choice, you're going to typically want a burning kind of reel, like a 7-1. But sometimes you can even go down to 6-1 for some slow action. Because sometimes bass like it really fast with a lot of jerks, but sometimes they also like a slower action with more steady pace.
With your line on these reels, you're generally going to want to start with no less than like a 20-pound fluorocarbon. Generally, you're going to want to go up to like a 25-pound fluorocarbon because you're usually throwing a spinnerbait through some sort of structure like weeds, grass beds, timber, that kind of thing. And so you're going to want to have the strength to pull your bass out of those areas. Next, we're going to be moving on to crankbait rods.
Typically with a crankbait rod, you're going to want a medium action, 7 foot to 7 foot 10 inch rod with a slow action tip. This is because when the bass hit, people tend to set the hook right away. But with the crankbait, you want to let the bass swallow the bait whole. That way you get a good hook set.
With your crankbait rod, a lot of guys will make the mistake of just buying any old rod that's like 7 foot or 7 foot 10 inch. That's a graphite rod. The reason you don't want to do this is because a graphite not only gives you sensitivity, which you do want, but it also gives you a really fast reaction time, which you don't want because you want the bass to be able to eat that bait before you set the hook. So the compromise is actually a composite rod. What it is it's made up of e-glass and graphite. The graphite still gives you the sensitivity, but the e-glass delays the rod's reaction time, allowing that fish to inhale the bait before you set the hook. Therefore, you don't rip the bait out of the fish's mouth and you catch more fish.
And with the line, you're going to want a little bit of lighter line, like a 10-pound to 14-pound test, fluorocarbon. But you can even go as high as 17-pound when you want to keep those deep diving crankbaits at a more shallow water level.
With the reel choice, you're going to want like a slow reel, like the Shimano Curado makes a pretty slow reel that's really good for crankbaits. Generally, it's like a 5-to-1 kind of reel because the reason you want this slow reel is because you want to be able to work your crankbait at a normal speed, and that's because the crankbait is meant to have its best action at this normal pace when the fish is swimming at a normal speed. Therefore, you don't dive the crankbait too fast into the ground so that it doesn't lose action, and you don't underwork your crankbait. It's basically a happy medium. It gives you the best of both worlds with speed and action with your crankbaits.
Now we're going to tell you about 2 different ways to use flipping and pitching.
The first one is it's the lighter of the 2 flipping and pitching rods. It's generally the 7 foot to 7 foot 2 inch rod, and you're going to want that in medium heavy and a fast action tip. The reason for this is because generally you're flipping and pitching into some sort of cover or like a little pocket back where the fish can hide and wait to ambush their prey, whether it be shad, minnows, crayfish, that sort of thing. And those bass will hide back in there, and you really want to use a subtle presentation that doesn't spook the fish. So you're going to want to be able to pitch in there with that 7 foot or 7 foot 2 action rod, medium heavy, and you're going to want that medium heavy because you're going to want enough leverage to pull those fish out of that cover, and the fast action tip just helps you with that hook set.
Now with the reel, you're going to typically want a medium kind of speed reel, like a 6-to-1 or a 7-to-1. This is because you're keeping that bait in the strike zone for a certain amount of time, and when it gets out, you're just going to want to reel it in, get back in that strike zone, because the more time you're in the strike zone, the more chance you get a bass.
With the line for that, you're going to want to start out at no lighter than like a 20-pound fluorocarbon, all the way up to like a 30-pound fluorocarbon, 30-pound braid. With this lighter of the two flip and pitch, you can go either fluorocarbon or braid for your maximum performance. Never really go with mono because it has a lot of stretch. You don't want the stretch in that heavy cover. You want something that's going to be a little bit better. And with the heavy cover, you want to be able to have a lot of strength on your line so that you can depend on your line and it won't break off. And with that braid, you have a lot of strength in there. As long as you use a fluorocarbon leader, the fish won't see it. The fluorocarbon is really tough. It's thick, but it's super invisible in the water, so the bass won't see it even if it's 30-pound fluorocarbon. That just gives you confidence in your line, great line, and you won't break off nearly as much as having like 15-pound, 17-pound fluorocarbon. So it just gives you the best of both worlds for your line and your performance in your line.
Now we're going to tell you about fishing in the heavy cover type of flipping and pitching.
This rod is a 7-foot 5-inch rod with a heavy action fast tip. The reason being is because with this rod you're really flipping into really heavy, extremely heavy cover where the bass are sitting in on really hot days to get out of that like really hot sun. So you'll go in there and since that cover is so thick, you're going to need to pull those bass out. Any 5-pound bass, 3-pound bass, it's going to seem like 20 pounds because of all the weeds you're pulling out with it.
Now with the reel, it's going to be generally the same, but with the line, it's going to be different because you're going to typically want 30 to 65-pound test because like Josh said, you're going to be pulling out really heavy weeds along with the fish, making like a 5-pound bass feel like a 25-pound bass.
Just to clarify that, that's braid. You don't usually want to go up to 65-pound with fluorocarbon. With that heavier line, you're going to want to use braid and just like a 25-pound fluorocarbon leader, short fluorocarbon leader, just so that the fish don't see the braid. You never want to really tie braid onto a lure. I think that's all we have for today. This is the first of a 3-part segment. Next we'll be telling you, I think it's another bait casting rod and reel choice on swim baits, jigging, and last one, I forgot.
We'll tell you later.
Yeah, it'll be in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment, rate, subscribe, check out our channel, and have a nice day out on the water, and catch some bass for us. We're Luke, Josh, this is BAB Fishing. Have a good day.